Welcome, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by, once again coming your way with a review of a Blu-ray. So last year, 2024, this film, which I held in very, very high regard, definitely my favorite movie of 2024, and probably my favorite horror movie of the 21st century, came out, In a Violent Nature, and I was really, really hoping that I saw it for the first time streaming, and at that time there was no announcement or anything of a physical DVD or Blu-ray release, and I was really, really, really hoping there would be. Luckily there was. And then it turned out that when it came out on Blu-ray, it sold out everywhere. I think they didn't anticipate how much interest there would be in this movie, and they underprinted Blu-ray discs, and that was kind of a panic moment, and of course the scalpers on eBay took advantage of it. But I just patiently waited, assuming that they'd just print more and, just be able to get it again later. I pre-ordered it, so it was I pre-ordered at whatever it was, $17 or $18. So, if it ever came back in stock, I'd be able to get it for that price. So cut to, I don't know what, weeks after the release date. I don't know if it was more than a month. It seemed like a long time. I actually did end up getting it. Mine actually came with the slipcover and a poster inside. From what I've seen, there's at least two different versions of the poster. I'm not exactly sure what that's about, but luckily mine did come with a slipcover, and I got some variation of the fold-out mini poster as well. So having already reviewed the movie last year, I'm just going to review the Blu-ray now, and I was very excited for this release. Honestly, I did actually, because I found out online that you could get the DVD at Walmart. So when the Blu-ray sold out, I panicked. I'm like, you know what? I should probably go grab a DVD in case that ends up selling out and neither become available again. So plus I wanted to see it again. So I did actually, before this actually arrived, I did, and I love this movie a lot. So I'm completely happy to support the movie by also getting the DVD as well, which, in case you're wondering, looks like this. Mine came with a slipcover as well. So the first time I saw this on quote-unquote physical media was DVD. And honestly, for DVD, the image quality was fine. I don't know, we'll get into that in this review. I'm not exactly sure if the Blu-ray is that necessarily much clearer than the DVD, in all honesty, which was kind of interesting. But yeah, when the Blu-ray sold out and I realized I could get this at Walmart, I'm like, yeah, I better get the DVD just in case it all sells out and I can't get anything in the future at all. I was kind of disappointed to learn when I got this that DVD doesn't have any special features at all, but I was just happy to have the movie on disc. So obviously I watched it at the time and eagerly awaited the restocking of the Blu-ray and receiving that in the mail. That, of course, is what we're here to talk about. The Blu-ray release, as you can see, In a Violent Nature Collector's Edition. Collector's Edition is exclusive to the Blu-ray. DVD just features only the movie. As I said, I was actually kind of surprised watching the Blu-ray that the image quality I don't think is too terribly much better than the DVD version, which is kind of interesting. Of course, we all know this is a very low-budget movie, and that could be a factor as to why the image isn't slam-bang freaking amazing. But honestly, it's good enough to be to do what it does. And honestly, that's one of the reasons, upon listening to both of the commentaries, that Chris Nash chose the aspect ratio he did. I mean, growing up with movies like Friday the 13th and full screen home video versions, he kind of wanted to, I guess, emulate that kind of aspect ratio of the tube or CRT TVs of the 80s and the 90s, and do a movie in that aspect ratio. So it kind of maybe goes with, maybe it was purposeful that the movie's definition visually isn't that definition-y. I mean, it's HD, it's Blu-ray, it's high definition. But I was, like I say, I was really surprised that the image quality wasn't a huge leap up from the DVD that I saw first to the Blu-ray. But that's neither here nor there. I mean, I think that we can definitely see the movie, and so that's a good thing. Just maybe don't expect the most amazing frickin', I guess, image quality. I don't even know how to describe describe the image in this movie. I mean, it's serviceable, but I guess what my takeaway I'm trying to convey is that I was just surprised how the image on the Blu-ray wasn't necessarily that much better than the image on the DVD. One thing that I do like about the Blu-ray presentation is certain scenes, like I guess primarily nighttime scenes or darker lit scenes, there is actually a decent amount of, I guess it depends on, you know, what they're using or what codec or whatever, but I mean, being a digitally shot movie, I find it interesting that in low light, I guess it all depends on what settings they're using or whatever, but there's actually some, you know, there's like grain, what you would normally call film grain. In this case, I guess you'd call it video grain, but I thought it was really interesting, and I'm very appreciative of the fact that even with a digitally shot movie, in these low light situations, there's, you know, throughout the course of this movie, in low light situations, there's actually what you could basically call image grain, or you can't call it film grain, but just image grain, grain in the image in darker lit scenes, which is interesting. And I guess because of the fact that the end of the movie with that one woman talking to the other woman driving in the truck, I guess they had to film at a lower, slightly lower resolution so they could fit entire takes onto the card, so they say in the technical commentary, I think. And due to that factor, there's actually some decent amount of kind of, I guess maybe you'd call grain or noticeable pixelization or grain even in the daytime, you know, truck driving scene at the very end of the movie, and that kind of stuff. I don't know why, but I just like to be able to see the film grain in movies, or in this case, the whatever you want to call it, digital grain. And it was really interesting to actually see it during that brightly lit day in the truck scene as well. So that's something worth talking about on this Blu-ray release. Having watched this movie on the wall and you know, the 5.1 surround setup I've got, I was very, very kind of surprised and disappointed. I was really excited for the 5.1 version of this because I could only assume that there'd just be droves and droves of ambient, you know, taking place pretty much exclusively in the outdoors in the woods. There'd just be tons and tons of ambient, you know, surround sounds and all this and that is there, fortunately. But the main thing I was disappointed with, unless I heard wrong, but I think I heard correctly, and this brought me all the way back to like the late, when the hell did I get, okay, yeah, I got my first 5.1 receiver, I think, in 1998, so this brought me back to the late 90s, when I heard the very first 5.1 remix of Batman 1989. I mean, it was very disappointing how it seemed like to be a lazy, sloppy 5.1ing, in the fact that traditionally in a 5.1, you know, mix, that, let's say a movie that was actually, you know, in the mid or late 90s, that was actually made and mixed and recorded in, you know, discrete 5.1 digital surround, traditionally you'd have anything that's happening in the center would be in the center speaker, this kind of stuff, or maybe off to the side, right or left, and this kind of stuff. It'd depend on where things are happening in the screen, and the dialogue in most cases would be front and center most always, unless someone's just yelling from off to the side or whatever. And that's generally how 5.1 soundtracks work. But and then, you know, when I first was able to hear the 5.1 remix of Batman 1989 in probably 1998, I was very disappointed how, like, it just seemed like a sloppy, lazy version where they just took like the 2-channel stereo and it just played normally on the right and left speakers, but then the only thing that was like different is the dialogue was on the center channel, but all of the effects and you know, Foley and everything else was like happening just on the right and left. You know how right and left, if you have the same sound come out of the right and left, it's basically more or less center. Well, instead of coming out of the center speaker, it was the same sound on right and left, so it was kind of like supposed to be in the center right and left wise versus center speaker wise with Batman. The first DVD of Batman 1989, which I can only assume was the first 5.1 remix of the soundtrack. Like I say, I think it was a very sloppy kind of taking stereo and just normal stereo soundtrack, putting dialogue on the center channel. And I don't know, I didn't really scrutinize the surrounds per se, but probably laziness in the surrounds of that sound mix as well. So this is like the very first time that I can remember. Oh, granted, I don't see a lot of new movies, or even if I do, I don't experience a lot of them in the 5.1 projector setup I have. But I mean, this is the very first time that I heard a contemporary new movie that, you know, was produced after the, you know, the basically the mid to late 90s, where every big movie is, you know, the discrete, you know, at minimum the discrete 5.1 digital surround sound. This is the very first one that I ever heard that was kind of like that Batman, that lazy Batman remix on the DVD, the first DVD, where it's like all of the Foley and sound effects are, I wasn't, well, yeah, it was hard for me to discern, but I can, you know, it was kind of like all the Foley and sound effects and all the sounds of everything going on screen is probably on the right and left speaker. And, you know, I'm not saying it's not going to go from more on right or more on left depending on what's going on. It definitely does that. But I think it's the same thing, the exact same thing from what I could understand or from what I could hear. The Batman '89, the first 5.1 DVD remix, where the dialogue is probably the only thing that's necessarily in the center. And everything else, like the guys walking, the footsteps, all that is, you know, maybe equally distributed for the most part on the right and the left. And obviously if you know, the ATV goes off this way or that way, you know, it's gonna, the speakers, the sound's gonna go from right to left or whatever, but I'm not so sure any of it's like happening on the center speaker, which is really interesting. The surrounds are fine. I can only assume the surrounds are, you know, discrete, you know, discrete rear left and discrete rear right. But I was just really surprised that you know, frickin' like, you know, a quarter into the 21st century, I can only assume it was like a late, you know, maybe cheaper to do this sound this way. Very, I guess, at the end of the day, disappointed, because that's not how I like my 5.1 audio tracks to sound. You know, it just, as I said, brought me back to that, you know, just lazy Batman '89 mix. But so that was actually more or less disappointing. I mean, the surrounds and all the ambient sounds are all around you, and that's cool. I'm pretty sure when it's very possible when he put the stick on the horn and goes around the cabin and comes around, maybe the horn, you know, goes off to the side and goes behind you and goes like this. It's possible that happened. But my biggest takeaway from the sound aspect of the, you know, this Blu-ray release, and it's going to be the same on DVD obviously, was just that, I guess, what I'd call lazy sound mix of putting things that are supposed to happen, you know, things that are happening dead center on screen should be on the center channel, in my opinion. All this kind of stuff, and his footsteps and this kind of stuff, where it's not, it's on the right and left or whatever, equally distributed, or in some cases not, you know, to whatever, to indicate, you know, sound going off to the right and left. So that was really weird to me. And I guess, you know, if he you know, the fact that he chose the aspect ratio he did, maybe he intentionally chose that kind of more archaic kind of sound mix. I'm not exact, can only assume that was intentional, just like his choice for the aspect ratio. But yeah, that was the most disappointing aspect of the Blu-ray release. As we can see here, 2-disc set with 3 hours of bonus features. It's probably honestly more than that if you calculate the frickin', you know, two separate commentaries and all of the behind the scenes of the first attempt at making of the movie and all this and that. So it's probably more than 3 hours. I don't know why they misrepresented that. You could say 4 hours, or over, they could say over 4 hours or something, but or at least say over 3 hours. But it's definitely more than 3 hours. I mean, just the movie, just the 2 commentaries alone are 3 hours. Not to mention what is that documentary, like nearly an hour long, of the attempt at the making of the first movie. But as we can see, storyboard kill galleries, I think that's the only thing I didn't look at. This is the thing that's really interesting. Dead in the Water, the attempted making of the original In a Violent Nature. So believe it or not, they actually made this movie twice, or at least twice that we know of. The first time they filmed the movie, it was, I can't even remember why the hell the majority of, well, all but one shot of the original shoot was just basically thrown in the dumpster. One shot that was used, or that was shot during the original shoot, was used in the final film as we know it. It's the shot that of the chick, you know, the kind of Johnny's point of view from the outside looking at the chick who like takes her shirt off in the cabin, and and is looking out the window at night. Not that there's anything to see on that chick at all, but from what I understand in the commentary, that one shot is the only thing from the first shoot that made it into the final film, which is just really strange to me. But it's unfortunately, because of the era that I can't remember if it was 2022 when it might have been 2022 when they were making the first version or the first attempt at it. Unfortunately for me, it's very frustrating to watch it's fascinating to watch that, but it's also frustrating because if it is 2022, you think by then people would be more relaxed. But as we know, some people are still not and may never become relaxed in life. But I can only say, how can I say this? Yeah, the appearance of facial garments in everyone behind camera, in the behind the scenes of the first attempt, the making of In a Violent Nature, people wearing their facial garments is just so hard, just difficult for me to watch, and especially if it was 2022, it's just like. But as we know, depending on your age, even in 2025, people are still rocking the facial garment. So and may very well for I can only assume the rest of their lives, it's going to be kind of a I guess maybe a status or lack thereof, a status symbol or something. But that was for me the most disheartening aspect of the behind the scenes of the first attempt of making In a Violent Nature was just that. But that aside, which is very hard for me to put aside because, oh my God, anyway, I'll try to move on. It was interesting, very interesting to see indeed. And one of the things that I think is kind of a bummer is that, it'd be kind of nice to see the same thing for, the behind the scenes of the film, that, the version behind the scenes of the movie, the second attempt, or the final attempt. Who knows? For all we know, there's many more attempts that they won't share with us. But I can only assume there's the one attempt in the second attempt. It seems to me in the commentary, I can't remember what they call the different attempts. Were they tiers or phases or blocks maybe? I think they refer to each attempt as a block. So the first one would be block 1 and block 2. It seems like they in the commentary said block 3. I could be misunderstanding, but definitely very interesting to see all of their problems and stuff that they were encountering during the production of the first attempt of the film. Like I said, it'd be nice to see behind the scenes of the second attempt, the version we all know and love that actually made it to the screen or whatever. One thing I do want to say about the first attempt is that one of the chicks that they replaced in the second attempt was like very, very attractive, and it makes you wonder why. I can only assume she either couldn't or didn't want to come back, but I think from what I can see, like everyone else from the first attempt came back to actually appear, well, with the exception of Johnny, of course, but all the victims, I think, if I'm understanding correctly just by watching the making of the first block, I don't know if they call it that, I can't remember. The first attempt, it seems like everyone might come back, all of the victims except one chick, the one who gets drowned or whatever. And it's interesting how, because of, I guess, weather or something, like they changed her death to not even be in the water, like she just gets, like axed, laying on the ground or something goofy. But the first chick they had was actually, believe it or not, pretty physically attractive. And it's kind of a bummer in a way that she, for whatever reason, didn't come back to do the second version, and then she's not in the film, the finished film and stuff, because, god dang it, she was attractive. But, that's kind of the way, it almost makes you wonder if between, like, the filming of the first attempt and the second attempt, like someone higher up said, you know what, we saw the dailies of her, she's way too she's way too attractive, you got to get someone who's not as attractive to be in the second attempt, because we're not into this like attractive women thing anymore. You gotta put fugly, girls in the movie. I wouldn't even put it past, like if Shudder, or something. I think it's like that one 3-letter company in Shudder. Someone high up probably said, "Wait, she's way too attractive." Who knows? For all we know, the whole reason the first attempt probably didn't get distributed is because the attractive chick being in it. But if you don't know what I'm saying, get the Blu-ray, watch this. I think it's nearly an hour long, like documentary behind the scenes of the first attempt. Yeah, she's actually pretty attractive, and what's funny about her is like around the campfire stuff, but between takes, she's kind of saying something like that I've said, and a lot of viewers probably say as well to themselves or to people that are next to them, is because she's supposed to be like in fact attracted to the blonde or whatever. I think the blonde was the same in the first and the second versions, and just based on the lines that the blonde has, the actress who was the brunette was kind of like, why is my character into this chick? She says something like that in passing between takes. She's just something to the effect of this, the blonde chick's a bitch. Why, and I like her, which is kind of it. Maybe that's why maybe they didn't want her back, because she did a microaggression. That comment was a microaggression or macro or something. But yeah, that's actually the most probably interesting takeaway, or one of them, is just how they actually had a pretty attractive woman the first time around, and strangely she's not in the final version, and I don't think it's ever mentioned like why. And like I say, she might be the only one who didn't come back, and it makes you wonder, attractive chick was not welcome back or something. But all I can do is speculate. But these days it wouldn't surprise me. One thing that I can't even really say, I can't really even say on the video, but one thing I was disgusted to hear about, and actually, well, if you've heard the commentary, you'll know what I'm talking about. Initially, I think the brunette chick was actually just going to be a guy, and it was just going to be a heterosexual interest, where the guy and then the blonde chick were, so just, that blonde and brunette chick, the one that drowns and then the famous yoga kill, the brunette was originally a guy. And then I think the producer chick or whatever said, I'm not even going to say it, but we had I'll just say we had an individual audition for the movie. I'm just going to call them an individual. And that made us think, yeah, maybe we could just change it up. And I think another point from them was like, yeah, there's so many guys in this anyway. And, so we'll just have, this girl be, these two girls be into each other or whatever. But a little bit of interesting stuff going on there, and yeah, that's all I'll say about it. But it also makes you wonder if, yeah, that's the reason why, like I said, I can't get away from the fact that the first chick was so attractive, and then second time they make the movie, she's not a part of it. Anyway, that's a very interesting video if you can get past people's facial garments, which, oh my god, it's just so fucking, anyway. And there's also, I think I want to say, a better part of somewhere around maybe 40 minutes of actual footage from the first version, and watching it, comparing it to the movie we all know and love that came out last year, was officially released, I can completely understand why they reshot the whole movie, because yeah, it's nowhere as good as the movie we all, that came out last year that we all know and love. So the footage that they show us, I think, like I say, it's somewhere around 40 minutes, give or take, of actual footage of the first attempt, is just like, oh my god. Some of it is so like, oh my god, compared to the second version or the real version, it's like, it's almost like a, how you just, like a, practice run or something. I mean, I guess that's what it was, but I can totally understand why they reshot the whole movie again. But those are that I probably talked way too much about that stuff, but I'm doing this video to share my thoughts on it. Also on the special features here, the yoga kill candid on-set footage. That also includes some funny bloopers, or at least one blooper of a gore effect that went wrong. And actually, if I remember correctly, the blood actually splattered right onto Chris Nash instead of going to where it was supposed to. And as I said here, scenes from the first version of In a Violent Nature as well. Those are interesting, and as I said, completely understand why they reshot the thing once you see it. Sundance Video Diary, which for some reason is, I think, shot on high 8 or something. I don't know if it's their way of trying to be retro. Not exactly sure why the hell it's shot on high 8 and not like in 4K on an iPhone or something. But I guess it's them being, I can only assume they're like 30-somethings or 20-somethings or 30-somethings. It's their way of being retro, I guess. I'd honestly just as soon have the best video, image quality of the Sundance Video Diary, but it was their way of being retro and cool, I guess. It says behind the scenes. I can only assume that means behind the scenes of the movie that, ended up coming out. And like I said, there's like, I want to say it's like one shot of a camera just way off in the distance, and you can hear what's going on, and you can see someone run by. So I think, for the behind the scenes of the movie that, came out and exists, we only get to see just like one shot of maybe one take of one part of the movie or something. It might be 6 minutes long. I can't remember, but all I remember is like one shot. And it's kind of like, that's all you can give us for behind the scenes of the movie that exists, but whatever. Production and cast commentary and technical commentary. So yeah, there's two commentaries. First one is, as it said, production and cast. I mean, I don't know what production means. That could go in under technical, but you've got the guy who played Johnny. I think the lead chick commentary. I don't think there's any of the other actors. I'm not sure. Probably, I don't know. Chris Nash is on both of them. Then the second commentary is technical commentary. You've got, I think, possibly the cinematographer and the sound, two of the sound designers, Chris Nash and the producer chick. Producer chick might be on both of them as well. I can't remember, but the commentaries are possibly maybe not as interesting as I was hoping they'd be, but it's definitely interesting to, you hear about. I can't remember. Maybe it was the first commentary they joked about only one shot from the first attempt at making the movie, making it into the final movie, and I was kind of like, are we ever going to find out? But alas, on the second commentary, they do in fact inform us that it is that one shot of that skeleton woman with no shirt on, in her bra, in the cabin, opening up the drapes and looking out into the darkness, is in fact from the first shoot, and it made it in. It's the only shot that made it into the final film. So the commentaries are cool. It's cool that they did two of them, and both of them have Chris Nash, and possibly both of them have the producer chick or whatever. But the special features, I really just because I'm really interested in this movie, it's one of the rare occasions these days where I just consumed like instantly all of the special features, because it was very interesting to me, and it was just so crazy, because I heard of the term black flies in the film I'm very fond of from the 70s, made in Canada, by the name of Rituals. I've heard of black flies, and you didn't tell me it was black fly season. Oh, come on, Abel, they're just tiny little black flies. Like, I didn't quite understand how, what they had going on up there was so, like, the conditions of what black flies are. It's just like, it was kind of crazy seeing on the behind the scenes, everyone's got like bee nets and all these nets around their faces so the black flies don't land on them and I guess just devour their flesh. Just like, so you can actually see in the final movie, some shots of, all the black flies buzzing around, and of course it plays into the song at the end of the film and stuff, so you can appreciate the actual, like, what they went through making this with all the, in the midst of all the black flies, when you see the behind the scenes of the first attempt of the movie and stuff. So you know, the commentaries, you know, the commentaries and all the special features they give us were more or less really cool and very much appreciated. As I said, I was fortunate enough to get a slipcover. I looked on some forums on Blu-ray.com, and some people weren't as fortunate to get a slipcover. Mine was kind of slightly ripped on the top, and I just put some tape over it to try to keep it from getting ripped any further. But I was glad to be one of the fortunate people to actually get a slipcover, when I can only assume this is the second batch of DVDs that were, or Blu-rays rather, that were produced after the first batch sold out. Underneath the slipcover looks like this. It's like deja vu, man. Very familiar. Actual Blu-ray discs look like this. In a Violent Nature, the movie itself has the image of him with the hook raised high. Special features disc is pretty cool. It's the close-up of the front of Johnny's little mask thingy that he's got going on. This is the poster that came in my Blu-ray, kind of a big reproduction of like a 70s or 80s era lobby card. I looked online, and there's different versions. There's at least 2 different versions. There's at least another version that's different than this, but this is the one I got, which I think is pretty cool. Top corner there, we've got a quote from Salon. "Grossest, most elaborate kill scenes." Just a shot of the back of Johnny, as we're so familiar with if you've seen the movie, black and white, which is kind of interesting. The main image here, of course, is Johnny cutting the pieces of that one Ranger guy, also in black and white. Looks really cool. The only thing that's in color on this like lobby card mini poster thing is the quotes, or the print I should say, in blood red. The quote from Salon, and the title in this case, "In a Violent Nature," in blood red. Definitely has a very cool, I'd say 70s feel to this mini poster like lobby card thingy. In this case, this is a single-sided mini poster lobby card thingy, but you know, it'd be kind of cool to get the other one, or if there's only one other version or whatever, but I'm probably not willing to pay what people are probably asking for. Plus, I probably would just keep it folded up in the Blu-ray anyway, but I'm definitely glad I got some version of like the mini poster / lobby card thing. This is really pretty cool. Strangely enough, this isn't the most amazing release when you're talking about image quality and sound quality. Kind of a strange Blu-ray review for a movie that just was made and just released recently. But you know, one can only assume, just like as I said, with the aspect ratio that Chris Nash chose, maybe the goofy sound mix and the not super amazing usage of 5.1 was also a conscious choice to make. I know a lot of, like back when the Holdovers came out, I was very surprised that the Blu-ray release was said to be what, like 3.0, like just the right, left, and center. And we watched it on 5.1 setup. It sounded just like center to me. I don't know. I don't think there was anything on the sides or anything. But that was a movie that was supposed to have been released. Masquerades as a movie released in the early 70s. So I really commend people for actually, or commend them in the release of the Holdovers to actually basically make it a mono movie. That's pretty daring. I know Woody Allen was also kind of opposed to stereo surround for years and years and years, and it was only until, I don't know, recently that they actually talked him into doing 3.0. So it's like at least 3 channels in the front, give us a center and a right and a left or whatever. But it's always interesting when you've got these different kind of movies that want to do something a little different, in this case both visually and audially. And I can only assume the reason the 5.1 mix is the way it is because Chris Nash and company didn't want it to be as slam bang snazzy as your average 5.1 mix is these days. Just as I say, he chose the aspect ratio he chose for the film. So I guess that's pretty much my review. It probably went on a lot longer than I intended it to, but when I get talking about this movie, I guess I definitely get talking. I guess that'll do it for my review of the Blu-ray release, which is really pretty great Blu-ray release of In a Violent Nature. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, we'll catch you on the next video.